to your movement practice. Today we have a spicy little, maybe 30-minute flow, kind of Budokon inspired, kind of a section 4 and 5 blend. And we'll begin in a seesaw. Palms connect onto the thighs. Start to settle into the breath. Crown of the head reaches high towards the ceiling and tailbone stays heavy. Maybe you begin to lengthen out the breath. Strong inhales and strong exhales. Maybe you make a gentle constriction at the back of the throat. Start just by moving the head, dropping the right ear over to the right shoulder. Leveling out the left shoulder a little bit, don't let it hike up. Back up through center, left ear to left shoulder. Calm breaths through center, right ear, right shoulder. This time rolling the chin down through center and over to the left hand side, left ear, left shoulder. And then rolling the chin down through center, right ear, right shoulder. Coming back through center, rolling the shoulders up towards the ears and down a few times. And then just placing the fingertips on the deltoids, begin making big circles with the elbows. I say this flow is 30 minutes, watch it be an hour. There's really no way to know. And then when you've reached 10-ish, the other way. Nice. And then reaching the arms up to the sides in a T shape. Form fists. And then just bend at the elbows, windmilling the forearms. My shoulders love to pop on this one. And then the other way. And then reaching the arms out in front of you, nice and straight. Begin flicking the hands between an open and closed position, like you're flicking water off of your fingertips. Steady in the breath, long through the sides of the neck, and then shake it out. Basing one hand on the ground underneath the shoulders, followed by the other. Knees underneath the hips, tabletop. Keeping a strong core. This flow is full of spinal undulation, so we'll start warming up through the core and the spine. Tipping the tailbone up towards the ceiling, belly drops. Roll through the back, vertebra by vertebra, pull the chest through the arms, chin lift, shoulders away from the ears. Pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, bottom ribs knit in, rolling through the back, shoulders push apart, chin tucks. Keeping the chin and the chest engaged and connected. As you widen the sits bones, tailbone lifts, belly drops. Watch as the chest pulls through the arms, chin lifts. Tailbone tucks, engage through the core through these two movements. Finding your way to cat pose. 2 more times. Always finding a gentle engagement in the core. Keeping the breath steady. Last one. Through cat. And then eventually finding some stillness in the center. Rocking back and forth on the hands. Finding your way into wrist extension, then holding there. When we're in wrist extension, push the ground away with the hands, engage your cobra hood. Weight is mostly in the thumb and the first finger. Hollowing up the front line of the body. Seeing how far you can get the shoulders past the wrists. And then release. Backs of the hands to the ground, fingertips towards you, and just rock back and forth a few times. And then again, hands find the ground. Protract the scapula, pushing the ground away. Notice how in order to get more space, the eyes of the elbows like to pull inward. But keep that movement in the back. Notice how when your elbows are inward, your eyes of the elbows are inward, the weight kind of screws into the outside edge of the hand. So to counteract that, we twist the eyes of the elbows forward, and then notice how the weight is in the thumb and the first finger. And then again, find your wrist extension. Engaging the core and the shoulders. And then releasing, backs of the hands onto the ground, fingertips towards you. Just pump out the hands a few times. And then last time, maybe wiggle out the wrist a little bit. Last time, shoulders under the wrists. This time we keep the arms nice and straight. The elbows do not bend. Allow the chest to fall between the hands. Pinch the scapula behind you as if you're pinching a pencil. And then push the ground away, hollowing out the front line of the body. Repeating this again, chest lowers, pinching the scapula together. Then push the ground away with the hands. 3, down, and up. Notice how my elbows don't move. 4, down, and up. Movement is only coming from the scapula. 2 more, and up. Down and up. Now keep that work in the scapula, that up, that cobra hood, as we call it. Right foot plants behind you in plank. Left foot follows. Stay. Drawing the pelvic floor and the core up and in. Navel to spine, long neck. Three more breaths. Starting to build heat. Then tuck the chin, press the hands into the ground, roll the hips back and high, downward facing dog. Giving yourself a moment to pedal out the feet. Move how you need to move. Maybe shaking the head out. And then our first rolling wave. Uproot the heels. Pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, bottom ribs knit in as you roll your way into plank. Pause when you get to the plank. Look forward. Bend the knees, shift the hips back, loaded beast. Trying to tap the forehead on the ground. Wrapping the outside edges of the armpits downward. Think active child's pose. Keep all this engagement as you begin to send the hips high, moving slow. Keep the heels lifted, and then tuck the tailbone under again, rolling like a wave to your plank. This time, pause, lower the pelvis towards the ground, snake your way upward facing dog. Tuck the chin, engage through the core, push the hands into the ground, roll back, downward facing dog. Big toes come to touch. Right foot hovers an inch off the ground. Peel it back, three-legged dog. Toes are in a demi-point. Hips are level. Pelvis is level. Holding here for a moment. Feeling all the activity in the left leg, especially down the back of the hamstring. Squeeze the heel towards the sits bones. Uproot the left heel. Draw the right knee forward and roll. Knee to tricep position. Hover the right foot an inch off the ground as you begin to straighten through the knee. Hold for 3, 2, One, step the right foot to the outside of the right hand. Keep the crown of the head reaching forward. Maybe moving back and forth, but keeping the heel on the ground. And then lean forward, squeeze the left heel towards the glutes. Big step, left foot to the outside of left hand. Lower down, Malasana. Hands come to heart center. Maybe you roll up the wrists a few times. And then tented fingertips find the mat. Inhale to find a halfway lift, sending the hips high, look forward. Toes face forward. Don't let yourself collapse into your hips, but pull the belly button away from the floor, hollowing out the front line of the body. Head is pulling forward. Fingertips gripping into the mat and actively pulling backward. And then begin to heel toe the feet towards center, nice and slow. And when the big toes connect, release the torso towards the thighs. Any degree of bend in the knee to make that connection happen. Keep the fold. Hands rise up to about above the knee on the thigh, maybe on the shin. And then begin to round. So we're going to half lift, but we're going there in a rounded spine. So pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, hollow out the front line of the body. Find that cat back. As the arms straighten, begin to lift the pubic bone up towards the ceiling. Belly drops, chest pulls through the arms. Find extension in the spine, strong back. And then engage through the core and compress yourself inward. 2, once more, a little bend in the knee. Engage through the core as you roll up. This is kind of a more core movement. As the arms straighten, start at the hips as you find extension throughout the spine. Making the arch as dramatic as you want, but I like to keep it more neutral, not really flexed, but neutral spine. Then lead with the chest as you swan dive down. Last time, bend and roll. I guess this is flexion. What did I just say? Can't remember. Then as the arms straighten, begin to find your back extension. Chest pulls through the arms and then swan dive down. Release the hands when you get to the bottom of your fold. Deep bend in the knee, root to rise. Parachuting through the upper back, stacking vertebra on vertebra. Use your core to facilitate this movement. Arms reach out and up like you're scooping the air. Finding sword mudra, every finger interlaces except for the pointer. Mini back bend, bridging the hips forward, and then separate the hands as you swan dive down, leading with the chest. Curling in at the bottom. Inhale to find a halfway lift. Fingertips on the ground, knees bent to any degree, doesn't matter. Then come up high onto the toes, sink the hips towards the heels, iron footstool variation. Plant the hands, lean forward, find your max wrist extension, find cobra hood, shoulder protraction. Then bend the elbows, toes lift or not. And then either tiptoe or float your way back to chaturanga. Holding. Lowering all the way onto the front line of the body. Untuck the toes. Pull the chest through the arms. Upward facing dog. Tuck the chin. Roll it back. Downward facing dog. Rolling wave. Upward the heels. Pubic bone to navel. Navel to spine. Begin that roll into your plank. As the shoulders tap on top of the wrist, bend the knees, shift the weight back. Loaded beast. This time, lower the knees all the way onto the ground. Untuck the toes, shift the weight back into child's pose, but connect the forehead onto the ground and reach the arms back behind you onto the heels. We're going to roll our way up to an Ustrasana, a camel pose, by tucking the chin, shoulder heads roll in, hollow out the front line of the body. As you roll up and you've reached that max roll back, you can't really roll back anymore, then we begin to bridge the hips forward, peeling the chest up towards the sky, chin lifts. Shoulder heads roll in, and then tuck the chin, Shoulder heads roll all the way in as we roll the spine back through our flexion into our child's pose. Thighs are working. And we go again, tucking the chin, hollowing out the front line of the body, rounding through the spine. When we've gone as far back as we can, and we bridge the hips forward. Chest up towards the ceiling. Shoulders are internally rotating. Tuck the chin, shoulder heads roll in, peel yourself back down. And the last time, same thing, tuck the chin, roll through the spine, bridge the hips forward, moving your spine like a wave. And then tuck the chin, shoulders roll in, roll your way back. This time we reach forward with the hands, active child's pose, tuck the toes under, lift the knees. And again, we go through that rolling wave, being to straighten through the legs, tailbone high, then tuck the tailbone under you and roll forward, vertebra by vertebra. Then lower the hips towards the ground, sinking down, chest pulls through the arms, upward facing dog. Tuck the chin, push the hands into the ground, roll back, downward facing dog. Big toes come to touch. Left foot hovers off the ground, nice and slow, peel it back, three-legged dog. Pausing here for a moment. Outside edges of the armpits wrapping down. Finding your cobra hood, wideness across the upper back. The lift from the left foot is coming from the glutes and the hamstrings. Now bend the lifted leg, upward the right heel, drive the left knee forward, and roll, stepping left foot to the outside of left hand, maybe hovering for a moment. 3, 2, 1, landing in your lizard. Pausing, rocking back and forth. And connecting both hands onto the ground, lean forward. Draw the right heel towards the sits bones. Big step into Malasana. Lowering all the way down. Maybe shaking out the wrists. Tented fingertips find the mat. Find a halfway lift. Toes face forward. Maybe a little bend to the knee. Then begin to shift the weight back and forth, rocking on the toes and the heels, finding your way into a forward fold, curling in at the bottom. Hands rise up, maybe above the knee on the thigh or at the shin. Then this time initiate, or again, not this time, same as before, initiate that roll through a rounded spine. And as the arms straighten, the tailbone begins to extend. Lifting up, pulling the chest through the arms, finding length down the side body, and then leading with the chest as you fold. 1, 2, tuck the chin and roll. Engage through the core, finding space across the sits bones as you pull the chest through the arms. Extension, lead with the chest down. 2, one more time. Finding lots of movement throughout the spine, lots of engagement in the core. Lead with the chest down, nice long extended spine. Release the hands. Deep bend in the knee, root to rise. Parachuting through the upper back, engage the core. Arms reach up and up. Take sword mudra with the hands, bridge the hips forward, find a mini back bend. Separate the hands as you swan dive over the legs, lead with the chest. Taking it slow. Curl in at the bottom. Find a halfway lift, inhale. And then come up high onto the toes, sink the hips towards the heels. Iron footstool variation. Plant the hands. Lean forward, finding your max wrist extension. Bend the elbows and shimmy the toes back into your chaturanga. Lowering all the way down onto the belly. Keep the hands where they are, untuck the toes. Pull the chest between the hands, upward facing dog. Tuck the chin, protract through the scapula, roll the hips back and high, downward facing dog. Come up onto the toes, hips all the way toward the heels, knees are at a hover, maybe the forehead taps the ground, outside blade edges, outside edges of the armpits, wrapping downward, loaded beast. Lowering the knees onto the ground, untucking the toes, tops of the feet onto the mat, forehead on the mat. Reach back with the hands. Gripping onto the heels. Come onto the top of the head as you tuck the chin. Begin that roll through cat back. And as the shoulders begin to stack over the ankles, bridge the hips forward. And find your camel. Tuck the chin, roll the shoulders in, roll yourself back down. Engaging through the core. That's 1. 2, tuck the chin, hollow out the body as the shoulders stack on top of the ankles, bridge the hips forward. Nice strong legs, tuck the chin, roll it back down. That's 2. And 3. Rolling on your own time. And then initiating the roll down by tucking the chin, rolling the shoulder heads in. This time sweeping the hands forward, pressing the hands into the mat, tucking the toes. And then keep the heels lifted as you begin to lift the hips. Then pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, and roll your way into your high plank. When the shoulders tap on top of the wrists, the pelvis descends. Watch as the belly draws forward, the chest draws forward, the shoulders stack on top of the wrists, finding extension through the sides of the neck. Tuck the chin, press the hands into the ground, roll it back, downward facing dog. Taking a moment, paddling at the feet. And then big toes come to touch. Right foot hovers an inch off the ground. Peel it back, 3-legged dog. Feel an internal rotation. The inner thighs are spiraling towards each other, causing the pelvis to remain neutral. The glutes and hamstrings to remain engaged. And now see what it feels like to open the hip, like you're stacking right hip on top of left. Now bend the lifted leg. Uproot the left heel. Big rainbow of the right knee forward as you move your way. Need a tricep. Hold. Maybe you hover the foot. 3, 2, 1. Lizard lunge. Back knee plants. Now begin to shift the weight back. Straightening through the straight leg. Tented fingertips find the mat. Lead with the chest as you roll down. When you find your max depth, tuck the chin, press through the upper back as you roll up. Once the arms straighten, the movement starts at the pelvis, tailbone up towards the ceiling, belly drops, chest extends forward, lead with the chest as you swan dive down. Tuck the chin, press the fingertips into the mat, roll up. 2 more, tailbone lifts, belly drops, chest swan dives down. Tuck the chin, press the back of the heart up towards the ceiling. And 5, last time. Swan dive down. This time, as you roll up, begin to shift the weight forward back into your lizard lunge. Planting the hands on the inside of the right foot, and then lifting up on the back knee. Maybe tenting up on the fingertips. Maybe going down onto the elbows. Crown of the head working forward. Knee squeezing in towards the right tricep. Then pressing up onto the hands if you're not there already. Back foot shuffles in a little bit. Knees nice and bent. Allow the upper body to round as you slowly roll up to your high lunge. The feet are a little bit wider. That's okay. Arms reach up. Back knee extends. Take your sword mudra. Separate the hands as you straighten into the front leg. Arms sweep back behind you. Back foot plants also. Your back foot's kind of at a 45. And when the arms reach back behind you, you can take reverse prayer. You can fist bump yourself. You just want to find that bind. And then lead with the chest with an extended spine as you fold over the front leg. Micro bend in the knee. Long line between tailbone and crown of head. Pressing both feet equally into the mat. Engage through the core. Bend into the knee, release the hands. The back foot stays as is, bringing down the blade edge towards the mat in warrior one leg. Begin to roll up to stand, keeping this leg bent to the front. Arms reach out and up. Take sword mudra. Weight is evenly distributed between both feet. This time, more warrior one. We're in warrior one. And reach the arms apart as you straighten into the leg once more. Shoulder heads roll in. Take that bind, whatever it is that you took before, or maybe you take a new one. Doesn't have to be the same. Lead with the chest as you fold, flat back. Nice active legs, active hamstring. Separate the hands so you bend into the knee. Rolling up vertebra by vertebra, arms reach out and up, warrior one. Hand strata, heart center, sword mudra. Keep it low as you rotate on the feet, facing the long edge of the mat. Pressing into all three corners of both feet, legs are nice and engaged. Crown of the head high. Now we begin to rotate, face the back of the mat. Shooting the fingertips forward like an arrow as you lean over the front leg. Back leg is strong and straight. And then hands lower onto the ground. Reach forward with the crown of the head. Get nice and light in the back toes until they lift off the ground. Standing split. Inner thighs are rolling inward. Pelvis is neutral. Hips are level. Just like you did in three-legged dog. Now left fingertips in line with the left foot. Either tented fingertips, maybe you're on the block. You can have any degree of bend into that knee, maybe palm on the ground. Rotate through the hip so the right hip stacks on top of left. Right fingertips begin to reach up overhead. Ardha Chandrasana. Trying to make one long pillar between your right hand and your left hand. Long line of energy between the crown of your head and your back toes. The shoulder girdle is opening and the pelvis is opening as well. The hips. Begin to lower the back foot nice and slow. Warrior two, stance with the legs, rise up. Warrior two. Keep going back, reverse your warrior. And then lean forward with the left fingertips extended over the left leg. Plant the left hand to the outside of the left foot. Right arm sweeps up overhead, bases to the inside of the right foot. Level off the hips. Push the hands into the ground. Draw the heel towards the sits bones into nose. Fire the leg back. Three-legged dog. Lower the left foot next to the right. Down dog. Uproot the heels. Pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, rolling through your plank. And then shift the hips back into your active child's pose. Knees hovering an inch off the floor, pressing the hands into the mat. Lowering the knees onto the tops of the feet. Top of the forehead reaches the ground. Arms stretch back behind you. Maybe grab onto the ankles. Two, flowering lotus. Tuck the chin, rolling up, stacking shoulders on top of ankles, and then bridging the hips forward, dropping the head, rolling the chin and the shoulders down, finding your way back into that lowered position. And last time, rolling up, engaging through the spine and the core. Shoulders roll in, chin tucks, and then reach the arms forward. Tuck the toes. Begin to straighten through the legs. Keep the heels lifted. Pubic bone to navel, navel to spine, roll forward. Hips descend, upward facing dog. Peeling the chest to the arms. Tuck the chin, roll it back, downward facing dog. Hips and quads on fire. We're doing pretty good for time. Big toes come to touch. Left foot hovers an inch off the ground. Nice and slow, take it back, three-legged dog. Hips are level. Inner thighs spiraling inward. Pelvis is neutral. Pressing the hands into the ground. Outside edges of the armpits rolling downward. Now roll the left hip on top of the right. Keeping the legs nice and long. Noticing that stack. Bend the left knee. Squeeze heel towards the bum. Big rainbow of the knee forward, trying to tap knee to tricep through your plank position. Lowering the left foot to the outside of left hand. Maybe go hover, 3, 2, 1, lizard. Lowering onto the back knee. Shifting the weight backwards, straightening into the front leg. Basing the fingertips, taking 5 rolling waves, leading with the chest, or spinal undulations, I guess. As the chin tucks, pressing the back of the heart up towards the ceiling. 1. Falling into the breath. Using the arms and the core to help this movement. 2. 3. 4. A little bit of rest. 5. This time as you roll forward. Hands base the inside of the left leg. Right knee pops off a little bit. Holding here for a moment, either on hands, fingertips, or elbows. Crown of the head reaching forward. Opening through the hip. Hands plant to the inside of the left leg. Shorten the stance a little bit. Bend the back knee and roll up to your high lunge first. Arms reach out and up. Grab your sword mudra. Straighten through the back leg as much as you can. This knee, left knee will push over the toes a little bit maybe. That's fine. Begin to straighten through the leg. The arms separate. The back heel lowers. The foot's at a 45. Rolling the shoulders in. As you scoop the hands back behind you, take your bind. Puff up through the chest. Lead with the chest as you fold with an extended spine in a half lift. Not a half lift, but like a flat back. Keep the legs as they are. Rebend into the knee, release the hands. Roll up vertebra by vertebra. Find your way into a warrior 1 stance. Arms scoop out and up. This time, a little bit more hip opening than when we did with the high lunge legs. And then separate the hands, straighten through the leg. Arms rotate inward. Grab your bind. Lead with the chest as you fold with a flat back. Kind of more of an active pyramid. Tucking that left hip under you a little bit. Release the hands. Drape the upper body down. Bend into the knee. Roll up. Arms reach out and up. Take your sword. Warrior 1. Hands lower to heart center. Begin rotating on the feet into goddess. Pressing into the blade edges of both feet. Feeling strong in the legs. And then keep rotating to face the front of the mat. Gaze forward, shooting the fingertips forward as you lean over the front thigh. Back leg is straight, like you're trying to propel yourself forward, but your back toes remain on the ground. And then lower the hands onto the ground, maybe fingertips, maybe the whole hand. Send the weight into the front foot as the back toes lift. Peeling the chest away from the floor. Neutral pelvis. Neutral hips. Any degree of bend into the front knee. Instead of thinking of just folding, kind of like making an L shape with your body, try to keep your back in line with the lifted leg. And now, stack the left hip on top of the right. Base the right fingertips or the right hand. Left fingertips sweep up towards the ceiling, Ardha Chandrasana. Crown of the head reaches forward. Lowering the back toes all the way onto the ground, rising up into your warrior two. Not here for long, just a breath. Then transitioning to reverse your warrior, stretching at the side of the body that was a little bit compressed. And then reach forward with the right fingertips as you lean over the front thigh, basing the right hand to the outside of the right foot. Left fingertips sweep up overhead like you're watching the sunset. Level off the hips. Press the hands into the ground. Chamber heel towards sits bones. Shoot the leg back. Three-legged dog. Lowering the foot down. Down dog. Feet about hip-width distance apart. Uproot the heels. Rolling wave into your plank. Pubic bone to navel. Navel to spine. Rolling your way to your shoulders or over your wrist. Bend the knees. Send the hips back. Loaded beast. Lowering the knees down. Untucking the toes. Reaching the hands back. One flowering lotus, tucking the chin, shoulder heads roll in, stacking shoulders on top of ankles, and then bridging the hips forward. Shoulder heads still roll inward, dropping the head only if it feels comfortable. Legs are still engaged. Tuck the chin, roll the shoulders forward, sweep the arms forward, active child's pose on the balls of the feet, lift the knees. Tuck the chin, straighten the legs, roll again like a wave into your plank, but this time work the hips down towards the heels of the hand. Pull the chest between the arms, upward facing dog. Tuck the chin, press the hands into the ground, roll it back, downward facing dog. Big toes come to touch. Right foot hovers an inch off the ground. Peel it back. Three-legged dog. Hips are neutral. Pelvis is neutral. Now open the hip, just like Ardha Chandrasana. Bend the lifted leg. Squeeze heel towards the bum. Active hip opener. Big rainbow of the knee. Right foot steps. Maybe hovers for a moment before it lands into your lizard lunge. Lower on the back knee, send the hips back to your half split. 3 rolling waves, leading with the chest as you melt down, and then pushing the back of the heart up towards the ceiling as you roll up. 2 more. Next time you roll up, begin to straighten or rebend, into the front knee. Hands base, maybe the forearms, the back knee lifts for your lizard lunge. Back knee bases, shortening your stance a little bit as you prop up onto your hands. Now lift the back knee, drape the upper body over the leg as you slowly roll to stand. Arms reach out and up, find your way into your high lunge. Kind of a more narrow stance high lunge. Back knee can remain bent. Separate the hands, straighten into the leg, back foot pivots and the heel lands on the ground. Taking your bind, puffing the chest forward, and then swan dive into your fold. Rebend into the knee, drape the upper body over the thigh, release the hands. Roll up to your warrior one. Arms reach out and up. And then pivot on the back foot so you're back in your high lunge. Reach the fingertips forward until the hands base on the ground, as if you're making your way to standing split. And definitely you can go there. Hanging out in your standing split, nice long line between the crown of your head and your toes, or maybe you take a few hops to handstand. Engage into your cobra hood, your scapula. Maybe you take a few hops, maybe you catch some air time. We'll take about 5 breaths. If you're up, lowering down. We all meet in standing split. And then begin to lower the back knee towards the ground, but the whole shin. The whole shin is parallel with the front edge of the mat. Reaching forward, lowering the hips all the way onto the ground. We're in kind of this, we call it warrior's base. Grabbing on to the foot with the hands and compressing so the whole thigh is on the chest. And then begin to lift the foot and extending to any degree. Allowing the head to roll inwards, stretching out the entire posterior chain. Two more breaths. Find a half lift, straight spine. Left hand rotates inward, grab the outside edge of the right foot, and spiral open, looking behind the right shoulder. Kicking the right foot into the hand, don't let yourself push the right leg inward, but stay nice and still and straighten the hips. Press the left knee down towards the ground. Strong base. Turn to face forward, release the foot, bend into the knee, left knee joins, Navasana. Stacking heart on top of pelvis. Maybe you play with straightening the legs. Cross the legs, plant the hands on either side of the hips, press through the arms as you press through your cobra hood. Maybe you lift the feet. Hover 3, 2, 1. Lower back down, Navasana. What is this, Ashtanga? Straighten the legs maybe. Last 3 breaths. And then cross the legs, plant the hands, maybe floating or stepping back to Chaturanga, lowering all the way down into the belly, untuck the toes. Pull the chest between the hands, upward facing dog. Tuck the chin, roll it back, downward facing dog, big toes come to touch. Left foot hovers an inch off the ground. Peel it back, 3-legged dog. Hips are neutral, pelvis is neutral. Inner thighs are spiraling inward. Now peel open the hips, stacking left hip on top of right. Squeeze the heel towards bum. Big rainbow of the left foot forward. Maybe find a little bit of hover time before you plant the foot down. Lizard lunge, back knee lowers. Shift the hips back, find your half split. Lead with the chest, find 3 spinal rolls. Next time you roll up, shift the weight forward. Hands base to the inside of the left foot. Maybe you're on forearms, back knee lifts. Now shortening the stance. Climbing up on the hands, back knee hovers, drape, the upper body over the thigh and roll up to your high lunge. Arms reach out and up. Grab your sword. Back knee can be bent to any degree. You can have it straight and your left knee pushing over your toes. You can move it back, have more of a 90-90 stance. Doesn't matter. Separate the hands as you pivot on the back foot, delivering the heel onto the floor. Take your bind, puff up through the chest, lead with the chest as you fold, finding a flat back. Engaging through the core. Release the hands, rebend into the knee. Allow the upper body to drape. Roll through the spine. Keep the back foot as it is. Hands reach out and up, warrior one. Level off the hips, pivoting on the toe. And then lean forward, chest over the thigh. Basing the hands or the fingertips on the ground on either side of the left foot. Back foot lifts. Again, you can stay here if this is what you want, or press to your cobra hood. You can take a few hops to handstand, about 5 breaths. It's very obvious to me which leg is my bad leg. One more breath. Then lower the back shin onto the mat. Lowering the hips onto the mat. Grab both sides of the foot as you kick it straight. By keeping that connection between chest and thigh, and then allowing yourself to fall inward. Rounded spine. Toes flex back towards the face. Feel compression between thigh and torso. Rise up, kind of half lift. Straight spine. And then internally rotate the right hand. Grab the outside blade edge of the left foot and spiral open towards the left hand side. Really try to root down that right knee. That might mean that you have to sacrifice some height. Release the foot, look forward. Feet come to touch Navasana. Maybe straighten through the legs, 3 breaths. Now cross the legs the funny way. Lean forward, hands space on either side of the hips. Press into your cobra hood as you lift the hips. Maybe the heels lift for 3, 2, 1. Lower the hips back down to Navasana, 3 breaths. And then soles of the feet plant on the ground. Reach forward with the hands and roll onto the spine, vertebra by vertebra. Draw the heels in towards the glutes when you get there. Feet are nice and wide. We rise up into bridge, but we go there slow. Pressing the hands into the mat. Energetically shift the feet forward without moving them. The tailbone wants to lift. Allow it. Press the low back into the mat, engaging through the core. Low back lifts. Mid back peels away from the ground. Upper back peels away from the ground. And we find our full expression of bridge pose. Knees hugging in towards midline. They don't want to touch, but they want to hug. Sharing this load of the arch throughout the entire spine. Now just to slowly begin to peel your way back down, 1 vertebra at a time. Taking a moment to windshield wiper through the feet. Sorry, the knees. Ooh, that was my hip. bridge, or you can go into wheel. If you want bridge, you know where you're going, I'll cue you for wheel. Hands plant on either side of the head, fingertips forward. We start the same. We start by energetically shifting the feet forward. The low back lifts off the ground. And then the mid back. And then the upper back, engaging through the core, popping up onto the top of the head first, and then lifting up into your bridge. Knees hugging inward. Sharing the load through the whole spine. And then lowering onto the top of the head first if you're in a wheel. And then the back of the head. And everybody rolls down the spine, vertebra by vertebra. Arms reach over the head, toes forward. Reach the feet up towards the ceiling. Keep zipping the legs together, pressing the low back into the mat. The feet continue until they're reaching overhead. Pressing the tops of the feet into the mat. Pressing the shoulders into the mat. Hands, sorry. Hands grab to the outside blade edges of the feet. Bend the knees, like ear pressure pose. And then slowly re-deliver the spine back onto the ground, vertebra by vertebra, making your way, into happy baby. Using your core to control the movement. Grabbing onto the outside blade edges of the feet, maybe peace fingers to big toes. Pressing the low back into the mat. And then drawing the knees together, arms out to a T. Actually, we'll cross right leg over left. Like cross right leg over left. And then you can grab onto the shins, or the ankles, or the blade edges of the feet. Twist over to the left-hand side, kicking the right leg straight off to the left. And the left knee is reaching forward. You've kind of bound yourself in a little pretzel. Keeping the spine nice and long. Re-bend into the right knee, draw yourself up through center, and then switch sides, this time crossing left knee on top of right. Grab onto something, blade edges of the feet, or shin, or ankle, and then we tip over to the right-hand side, extending the left leg outward, and then flipping the right knee to face forward. So you're kind of bound up in this little twisted knot. Bend through the left leg, draw yourself up through center, little squeeze. Rock side to side, release the back. Then extend the legs long and the arms out to the side or overhead, or wherever you want to be for your final resting pose. Completely letting go of the breath. Maybe you rock the head side to side a little bit, kind of release tension around the neck and the jaw. Maybe you take a big inhale through the nose, let it go through the mouth, and allow yourself to sink in. Then allow yourself to fall into a state of observation. Noticing the sounds around you. Whatever it is you see, whether it's your ceiling, the insides of your eyelids, feeling the texture of the floor or your mat underneath your skin. Falling into a gentle state of awareness. Relaxing your jaw. The sides of your neck. Then maybe invite a few big breaths. Maybe inhaling through the nose and out through the mouth. Maybe wiggling through fingers and toes, reaching the arms up overhead. And eventually making your way to a seated cross-legged position on the mat. Hands together to heart center. Option to stay here or coming into kneeling. However you want to close out. If you want to close out with me, right hand base is followed by the left. We bow to the warrior pose. Rising up, hands come to heart center. We bow to the yogi within. Namaste. And thank you so much for joining me for this Budokon inspired flow. I had so much fun writing it. I had so much fun doing it. It was double what I thought it would be. And I think I'm going to put this into level 3 spice. But thank you so much.